Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe.
Welcome back to another exciting week of House of the Unusual. This is Eddie Guevara, and I am here to bring you another exciting episode. This week I wanted to tell a story of what happened to me. I would say about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. I went to St. Augustine, Florida with my son and daughter, and while I was there, I visited the Pirate Museum in the Old City. I was shocked when I actually looked at the wall and there was a big giant flag, which there was a sign next to it that said, "This is an original pirate flag from the golden age of piracy." Exciting to see this. I told my daughter to take a picture of me next to it, and I took actually a few pictures, and I left the area. And as I came home, I was wondering what an exciting thing it would be if I could actually come across or have a duplicate of a real pirate flag. Now, the reason I did that, or I thought about that, was because when I saw the pirate flag they had in St. Augustine, it looked very barbaric. I mean, you could see it kind of looked like maybe a fifth grade kid would do it. It's not like the flags with the Jolly Rogers and crossbows that we're used to seeing. So I started doing an in-depth Google search as to where I could see what real pirate flags look like. To my shock, the first thing I discovered is that, well, there are absolutely no real pirate flags left in the world from the golden age of piracy. Now, the golden age of piracy was the time when Blackbeard, Captain Kidd, and all those famous pirates that we are accustomed to, reading about and hearing in school and television were alive. I believe, according to what I read, that right after Blackbeard was killed, the golden age of piracy faded. Then a new age of piracy started, which was called the Barbary Age of piracy, and what happened was that the pirates left the coast of Florida, the Keys and the Caribbean, and they went over to like Northern Africa and stuff. And that's where in 1790, Admiral Allen from the Royal Navy captured a pirate ship and actually took the flag. And in 1793, Admiral Curry also captured a flag and, took the flag and passed it on to their families. The Curry flag sits, I believe, in a restaurant, which is part of the family, and it still hangs in the lobby. The Allen flag, which is, from Admiral Allen, hangs in a museum in Finland, and it's called the Maritime Museum, or should I say the Royal Navy Maritime Museum. It's, both flags have been weathered with age and they're in horrible condition, but, they're still there. They're faded from their original glory, but, the flags are fascinating and a great part of history because that's all we really have in the entire world up to the present that we know of a real pirate flag. So here's the story where the story takes a turn of excitement for me. I was looking at Etsy and I came across one particular guy that had, because, as I saw those two flags, I wanted to see if there was anything similar to them that I could buy and have. I wanted something that was original. I didn't want something that was recreated with Hollywood and, how they make it like the Pirates of the Caribbean. I love the Pirates of the Caribbean. In fact, that's probably one of my favorite movies of all time. But the fact is that the flags they use are not real. The flags that I thought that, Captain Kidd had, Blackbeard, those flags are actually ideas or rumors of the time, traditions, folklore, that they put together these flags. But there's no actual written record of what it looked like. So I was kind of disappointed with that. So what I decided to do is when I saw this particular guy that he had a store and it was called Sleepy Bear Overmeyer. And I saw the store and he had quite a few pieces of, pirate maps and not maps. I'm sorry, pirate flags and some picture frames he had done. And what he does is he takes and makes original hand pieces, and then he puts them into antique oval or square glass frames, and he sells them for quite a few dollars. So anyway, I contacted him and I asked him, I said, hey, would you do a custom flag? He reached out to me and said, sure, sounds like a great idea. Why not? So I said to him, would you be willing to duplicate the 2 original pirate flags in existence? Now, the reason I say 2 is because after doing some research, I realized that the one in St. Augustine, Florida, it's probably from a World War I submarine. It's not an actual pirate flag. But, hey, museums will do that, So as I was, thinking about it, I said, well, let's take the other 2, because I actually wanted to make the 3. And Sleepy Bear kind of agreed that we should just make the 2. And to be honest with you, I also wanted the one in St. Augustine, Florida, because to me, the flag is really cool. But anyway, we decided, and he said to me, okay, Eddie, I'll do them for you. I said to him, well, if you are going to do them, I would like to see if we can get them done in a real old sailing cloth. I want it to be hand stitched, everything just like the original, an exact duplicate. Well, Sleepy Bear, and believe it or not, that is his real name, Sleepy Bear, whose background is in the Secret Service and stuff for over 30 years. This guy had really good connections, and he said to me, you know what, Eddie, I'm going to try to make them. So he got a hold of some Amish, I forgot, an Amish company or Amish group down in Pennsylvania, and he was able to get me a 135-year-old sailing cloth. And out of that sailing cloth, he started dyeing it, using different colors and dyes to try to duplicate the exact original flag. And believe it or not, I don't want to say exactly what it cost me, because it is a really large amount, but I had them both done. When I received them, I was in shock. I could not believe that this thing was such a great duplicate of the original flags. What I did then is I ran to Hobby Lobby with first, of course, because it took Sleepy Bear about, I think, 3 months to do each flag. I mean, he took his time. He really did a phenomenal job. He put the blood stains where the blood stains were, the tears where the tears were. And when I saw the first flag, which I got the Allen flag, I ran to Hobby Lobby, and when I was there, we framed them in museum quality glass, and the frame itself was a little bit over $550. So that tells you, what type of frame it was. I was fascinated with that. I took that flag and I, walked away very proud, having owned the only duplicate ever made in the entire world of a pirate flag. A few weeks later, I received the Curry flag. To my shock, an exact duplicate of the original Curry flag. This time I think Sleepy Bear overdid himself, because what he did was fascinating. The flag itself it's like if you have the original. He faded it. If you put side by side each one, you can actually put one over the other, and it's an exact duplicate. So with the same exact measurements, I'm not gonna say how he was able to obtain the original measurements, but I could tell you that both flags are exact duplicates of the original flags that are in Finland, since they're both located in Finland. One is in a restaurant and one is in the museum. Now, the exciting thing about these flags is that they're the only 2 existing copies of the Barbary Age of Piracy. Now, I know it's not the Golden Age of Piracy, but let's be honest. It's better to have something than nothing. And if you're going to say, let's make a pirate flag for Blackbeard, and we really don't know what his flags look like. Like I said, through folklore, some writings and stuff, there are some indirect ideas of what Blackbeard used as a flag. And one of the exciting things about it is that having both of my flags, I was actually approached by a museum to put them in there. Now, somebody had said to me, well, if you put your flags in a museum, are they going to pay you? Unfortunately, they won't pay me, but I'm not going to donate it either. But it would give reference to me as owning them, and it also creates provenance for them. So if I put them in a museum for 5 years, what is going to be the value of those flags since they have been displayed for 5 years? I think it might be, in the long term, a good idea to do. Now, I haven't decided yet what I want to do with them, but I do have them framed, and I am really excited to say that they're the only ones in the world. They've never been done before. Now, one thing I did discover too, which was really funny, was that the story of Blackbeard, as I was looking through all the pirate folklore and history, I came across the fact that Blackbeard, when he was killed, I think it was by Captain Wayward or Mayward, they cut off his head and they put it at the ship's front end. And it was there, telling the world that Blackbeard was dead. Then they later put his head on a pole in Blackbeard's Cove, where his head, I guess, stayed there a few years. There are rumors out there as to what really happened to the head, because we really don't know where it is at the present. But one of the rumors is, which I found fascinating, is that in Boston, Massachusetts, I think in Salem, there is a pub that has a drinking chalice. Not a chalice, but like a cup that's supposed to be made out of the skull of Blackbeard. Now, the museum used to display it, but they recently took it off because due to the fact that there is actually no substantial evidence that says, it is or not, the museum didn't want to display it. But I thought it was fascinating because I do go to Boston a lot, and I'm going to make a pit stop there and try to see if somehow I can talk to them into letting me see the relic. But anyway, as I was saying, it was a little different story I wanted to bring up to you guys this week. And guys, if you are aware, Halloween is coming soon, and we're going to have a special episode where Chuck and Cherry are going to be bringing up some great, interesting Halloween facts. As you guys know, the second part of this podcast, Chuck tells and reads a story each week, a true story in history or a scary story or fiction, but he will read it through his own words and do an explanation of the story and, whatever facts are behind it. Today's story, I believe, is been taken by Chuck, and he did some research on it for the last week or so. And today's story is about the great Houdini. I mean, Halloween's like almost around the corner, so everybody who knows Houdini knows he died on October 31st, 1926. And the fact that Houdini is probably the most famous magician of all time, this is actually the right time to bring him up. Now, like I said, we're going to do a couple Halloween specials. Next week, there'll be another one. The following week, we're going to have another one as we lead closer to Halloween. Unfortunately, for those people that I had told that I was going to be in Chiller Theater, I was going to hold a table, due to the fact that my son is actually going through a wedding and stuff right now. He's getting married. I'm afraid that I don't have the time to be able to do this Chiller convention, so I postponed it to April of 2024. So guys, having said that, thank you for listening this week, and I hope you guys tune in each week again. We need your likes. We need you guys to stand by us so that we can keep growing and bring more content. I will continue to do some YouTube videos, and as you guys know, we have acquired the original alien ball, the Betz ball, B-E-T-Z, which was from 1974, and it was found by the Betz family in Jacksonville, Florida. If you guys know the Betz ball or heard about the Betz ball, tune in to my YouTube channel because you're going to be seeing the ball in display there, and I have a whole video on it, and I'm going to do some experiment. Well, actually, right now I paid a professional guy with a PhD, professional Russian scientist, who's been evaluating the ball and checking it out to see if there's anything different about it. I do believe I have in my possession what could probably be the original. I don't want to say if it is or not because I don't have 100% on that, but it looks like it has a good chance of being. Having said that, thank you. Okay, Chuck, go ahead with your stuff, buddy.
All right, we have a chilling story tonight. Since it's so close to Halloween, this is about the great Houdini. Harry Houdini was born Eric Wise on March 24th, 1874. He died on Halloween Day, October 31st, 1926. Fun fact, Harry was born in Budapest, Hungary, not America. Most people tend to think he was born in America, but he was not. He was born in Budapest, and he came over at a very early age. His father was a rabbi. His dad's name was Samuel Weiss. His mother's name was Cecilia Steiner. Eric was one of 7 children, and Eric arrived in America on July 3rd, 1878. The Wises' home was in Appleton, Wisconsin. The family was very poor. Young Eric, as early as 9 years old, became a trapeze artist, billing himself as Eric, the Prince of the Air. Eric became interested in magic after reading the French magician Robert Houdin's autobiography. Eric took Houdin's last name and added an I to it. And thus it became Houdini. Houdini claimed his first part of his new name, Harry, was paying homage to vaudeville magician and magic extraordinaire Harry Keller, whom later became very good friends of Houdini. Harry began his career in 1891 with little success, performing at dime museums and sideshows. Things got so bad he even took a job as the wild man in the circus. Harry focused on card tricks, billing himself as the king of cards. Here's an interesting fact. Most magicians regarded Houdini as a competent sleight of hand artist, but not highly skilled. And I've read this before. From what I've read, his sleight of hand was slightly above average, nothing out of the ordinary. Soon Harry began experimenting with escape acts. This ended up being Harry's wheelhouse, so to speak, so he found his niche. Harry started performing escapes with his brother Dash, which was his nickname. His real name was Theodore. The brothers performed at the Chicago World's Fair in 1893, billed as the Brothers Houdini. In 1894, Harry met Beatrice Rayner, also known as Bess. She replaced Dash in the act. They originated the metamorphoses, which they changed place. Now this is the effect where Harry was locked into a packing crate, and the padlocks were put on and so forth. There was chains around the box. Bess would stand on top of the crate and hold a curtain in front of her, and the curtain would be raised. And I believe at that time she counted to 10. So she counted from 1 to 10. The curtain would be dropped, and Harry would be standing on top of the crate. When he jumped down, he would unlock the padlocks, and inside would be Bess. Now, in recent times, the Pendragons, they came up with a modern version of this, which was fantastic. It literally took 3 seconds. It was probably the fastest one I've ever seen. I've actually seen this in real life, so it was really fantastic. In 1900, Harry met manager Martin Beck, who booked him on the Orpheum vaudeville circuit. Harry also performed his handcuff act. Harry was booked to tour Europe. Harry Houdini baffled Scotland Yard to such a degree with his handcuff escapes, he was booked at magic theaters in the UK for $300 a week. Now, by today's conversion, that would be over $10,000 a week. So he was making pretty good money at that point. Harry's popularity grew, and he appeared all over Europe with his escape acts. Now, that's an interesting fact. Harry became popular in Europe before becoming popular here in the United States. Now, he traveled, like I said, with his escape acts, his illusions, card tricks, and challenges. He would challenge people. They would bring their handcuffs on stage, and a lot of these were homemade, and he would still get out. He widely became known as the Handcuff King. Harry started challenging local police as well. He would challenge them to restrain him in his jails, and he always escaped. Houdini deeply loved his mother, buying her a house in 1904 in the United States for $25,000. Now, by today's equivalency, that would be over $814,000. The house was located at 278 West 113th Street in Harlem, New York City. And there's a plate on the outside wall. It said that this home had originally belonged to Harry Houdini. Here's where things get pretty interesting. In 1902, Harry visited his mentor's grave, Robert Houdin, in Blois, France. Harry did not get permission to visit his grave, but he went anyway. Later on, Harry claimed he was treated terribly by Houdin's widow, Madame W. Emile Robert Houdin. In 1908, Harry did a bad thing. He wrote the book called The Unmasking of Robert Houdin. He turned against his mentor, basically claiming him to be a fraud, stating that all of his automatons and mechanical pieces were not built by him, but by a Dutch mechanician named Opre. Now, this fact was never proven. As a matter of fact, most scholars of magic, they would agree that this was unfounded. So that's the one thing about Harry Houdini, which from doing such a spiteful thing, his character was indeed flawed. I mean, Harry was it seemed like a very spiteful person. If he didn't get his way, he would turn on you. Now, I just wanted to mention about some of the things that Robert Houdin built. He was a brilliant man, there was no doubt about it. He built several automatons, which he used during his performances. One was the trapeze artist. He called him Antonio Diavolo. He was about 37 inches tall, and he was completely watchwork. He would place him on top of the trapeze bar. He'd give him a push, and Antonio would hold on with his hands. He would pull himself up. He would sit on the bar, rotate forward. He'd be upside down. His legs would extend. He would come back up, sit down. He'd actually flip back over. So his feet were attached to the bar, but his arms would let loose. I mean, it was a fascinating thing. And this is in like 1860, 1865. In recent years, I have built one of these actually, and it could be found on House of the Unusual. If you go on YouTube and search House of the Unusual, Eddie put a video up. And I built this about maybe 2 years ago. Mine is much smaller. He's only 17 inches, maybe 16 inches tall, and he's completely electronic. Basically, you push a few buttons and he goes through the routine. His body is loaded with low RPM motors, servos, and relays. And he basically does the same thing, but I added one part. At the end, I cover the whole contraption up with a cloth, and a burst of fire appears. When I whisk it away, the little trapeze artist is gone. So that's kind of my part that I added to it. The other thing which I was fascinated with Robert Houdin made is the pastry chef. This is a tabletop replication of a French bakery. The front doors would open, a little chef would come out, he would glide forward holding a tray. A spectator would pick whatever pastry he wanted. He'd put the order on the tray. The chef would go back in. The doors would close. a light would come on one of the side windows, and you could see the chef rolling out the dough with a rolling pin. The light would go off. A few seconds later, he would emerge from the front door with the pastry in his hand. I have also built one of these. It's really, really cool. It's quite a bit smaller than Robert Houdin's, and it is also completely electronic. I did sell this to Eddie Guevara from House of the Unusual, and this can be seen on YouTube as well by searching magician Chuck Caputo, pastry chef. So that's a few of the things that were really fascinating that really caught my eye about Robert Houdin. All right, getting on with the story. On September 21st, 1912, Harry introduced his water torture cell, hanging upside down, inserted in a vertical type aquarium, which literally held many, many hundreds of gallons of water. I'm not sure myself. He had the ability to hold his breath for about 3.5 minutes. To escape, Harry performed this escape for the rest of his career. So he did this throughout the years until he died. At this time, Harry escaped from packing crates, mail bags, milk cans, even the belly of a whale that washed up on the shore of Scranton, PA. Harry never claimed supernatural powers, but many insisted he dematerialized, particularly his friend Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Now, Conan Doyle is the writer of the Sherlock Holmes novels. Conan Doyle was a very, very intelligent man. He was a brilliant man. If you read the Sherlock Holmes series, which I have, they're fantastic. But he was very gullible. He actually believed that there was fairies. Someone had snapped a picture, supposedly, of these little tiny fairies outside in someone's yard. And Conan Doyle wanted the Kodak company to actually confirm that this is real. And they did not. They said that this doesn't look like it's a real photograph. So that'll give you some background of Conan Doyle. Harry was a master locksmith, which did aid him in his handcuffs escape. All the escapes he did. He secretly carried lockpicks on his person, or best would slip one to him with a kiss, believe it or not, or a glass of water. Harry also became quite proficient with straitjacket escapes, as was his brother Theodore, who billed himself as Houdini in years later. Harry actually dislocated both of his shoulders to escape from straitjackets. So you have to give him credit with this. I mean, that's a very, very painful thing to do. Harry was inventive, even vanishing a full-grown elephant at the New York Hippodrome. Harry served as president of the SAM, which is the Society of American Magicians, from 1917 until his death in 1926. Harry also had a brief film career, making and starring in several silent films. Oftentimes, in these movies, he was nailed in a packing crate and tossed overboard into a river. A few of the names of the more popular movies were The Master Mystery and The Grim Game. Harry became fascinated with aviation in 1909. He completed one of the first powered airplane flights in Australia. He even jumped from one plane to another in midair. Now, these are the planes that had the propellers at that time. In the 1920s, Harry debunked psychics and mediums. He was disgusted how they took advantage of the bereaved. The death of his mother was rumored to spark this obsession. Harry exposed frauds who even fooled scientists. One such case was Marjorie. She was from Massachusetts. She was a prominent psychic who claimed psychic abilities. She was married to a prominent doctor. I believe their last name was Crandall, if I'm not mistaken. The Scientific American magazine was prepared to offer Marjorie a cash prize until Harry stepped in and he built a wooden box type of containment to hold Marjorie. Basically, her arms were out holes on the sides and her feet were sticking out the bottom and her head out the top. Strangely enough, no manifestations took place while she was in here. No bells would ring, nothing. So she was not given the money. Now, Harry's passion of exposing spiritualists made his friends, such as Arthur Conan Doyle, somewhat difficult. Doyle was convinced Harry was a medium and didn't know it. Now, you have to remember, Doyle also believed in fairies. Their disagreement led to becoming enemies. When Houdini died, some believed his death was suspicious. Shortly before dying, Harry was punched in the stomach by a college student. Now, this is fact. Harry was caught off guard. He had a reputation of taking a punch to the gut. But shortly after the punch, Harry had burst appendix. He went into the hospital, sepsis set in, and he died several weeks later. At this time, there was no antibiotics, so you have to keep that in mind. Harry told his wife Bess that he would return after death to speak to her. Bess held yearly seances for 10 years afterwards, with no reply. The last one took place on top of the Knickerbocker Hotel, to no avail. There is a Houdini Museum in Scranton, Pennsylvania, if anybody would like to visit. It's a cool place. So there you go. Probably the most famous magic icon ever, Harry Houdini. Everybody knows his name. So there you go. One more great story. We'll talk to you soon.